This is going to be one of those videos where a couple years from now, when I have really high production quality, I'm going to look back on it and be like, oh my god, what was I doing? Anyways, hello friends. It's me, Dr. Hilary Agro. I get to say that now. This will be a much more casual, free-flowing video than my videos normally are. I'm making it just for YouTube, just for you, specifically those of you who have a slightly higher attention span than a lot of my audience does. God bless them. I am in a similar boat a lot of the time. The horrible hellscape that we live under really erodes away at your attention span. It makes it harder to watch longer videos like this one is going to be. However, I think my heart is actually in longer videos because I make short form videos usually because, well, for a few reasons. One is that you got to meet people where they're at. That's what people are mostly watching. So if we want to reach them to get them on team, let's let the planet survive, then you got to do that. But also because my massive perfectionism struggles make it really hard for me to envision doing longer form videos without some sort of planning. And short form videos I can plan in like a couple minutes, but a longer form video I would need more planning time to sit down and be like, what am I talking about? Am I going to do this in like a list form or whatever? And I've realized that with the limited time and energy that I have till this starts making me actual income, subscribe to my Patreon, please. I'm so grateful to the people who are still subscribed to my Patreon right now, even though I haven't made anything in 2 years. I have a few supporters still who have stuck with me through this period of me in the depths of my dissertation writing, essentially producing nothing for the public. People have still supported me, and I'm so grateful to them. I'm gonna have to figure out how to support them, or not support them, but thank them somehow. But anyways, I'm hoping to grow that Patreon back up so that I can make stuff like this all the time, and I don't have to get a real regular job that I have to go to from 9 to 5 and not be able to make this work at all. And this is really important to me, to be able to speak directly to the public. Those of you who know my work know that it's really fundamentally part of my values to be able to take the collective knowledge that I have had access to in university through my work, my activism and organizing, and being taught by many different teachers. I want to take that and facilitate getting it to the public in ways that are not paywalled, which is essentially what university is paywalled knowledge. So I hope to be able to continue to do this work, but I need supporters to be able to do that. So much love and thank you to my patrons. And if you've ever considered signing up to support me for a couple bucks a month, I don't know how to do the spiel. I need to get a little better at marketing myself or whatever. Everybody hates this. I don't like it either, but I'm gonna try to think of more creative ways to advertise the Patreon or tell people about it. I'm thinking about maybe just telling a funny story about my kids every time, because then people know that your money, where it's going, is to support my two very beautiful and very ridiculous and silly small children. And I have a lot of really good stories about them because my oldest is turning into just a fine young anarchist witch, with truly without me trying that hard. I'm just honest with her about how the world works, and she doesn't like that. There's other parents that tell their kids more about the dark sides of the world. I don't even really do that. I'm just kind of like, some people have no place to live, and I don't think that that's fair and kind that we don't give them a place to live. And kings and queens have so much money. Why do we let them do that? I don't know. I just don't think that that's good. And my oldest is just aggressively justice oriented. She's 6. Anyways, yeah, more fun stories about the kids will let people know that where your money is going is to buy food for the kids. Not diapers anymore, because they're 4 and 6 now, and they don't. Neither of them need diapers anymore. But we use a lot of toilet paper now, so your money would go to support their gratuitous use of toilet paper and food, and not even books, because we use the library. But we don't spend a lot of money, but living costs money, and this is an expensive city, and inflation, etc., etc. Anyways, I'm making this unusually unedited or lightly edited video to try to get myself out of that perfectionism of I need to make sure that it's really good and coherent and makes a point. I'm not gonna, but like the problem is I'm not gonna be like a leftist ContraPoints, shots fired, overnight. I'm not gonna be Sean overnight. I don't have the financial means to do that right now. Instead of making nothing because my perfectionism is getting in the way, I'm going to do more of these just sort of free flowing, just me chatting with you about stuff videos. And that way I'm also like kind of don't really care how many people are watching, because the few of you who are interested will watch and we'll just hang out together and do this. That's going to be kind of the vibe. If you have any suggestions for what you would like me to talk about, I did just finish my PhD. I did finish my dissertation and my research where I was interviewing activists and organizers about their sort of needs and concerns and expertise and the sort of world building that they're doing actively all the time. And my dissertation is titled Abolitionist World Building, Drug Policy Activists, no, something about, what is my own dissertation called? I don't know. I think I blocked it out. I only handed it in recently, and I think my whole body wants to forget that it exists. But it's good. It's actually good. I had to put an embargo on it. The public won't be able to read it until I can get a version of it out, because it's politically dangerous for me to have that fully available online for a few reasons. But yeah, it's Abolitionist World Building. I think it might be drug policy activists on Turtle Island. I'll check that and maybe put it in the description. But I learned a lot. I will hopefully make a video where maybe I'll just have it here and kind of go over what I learned, because my committee really liked it. I passed with minor revisions. That means that they quite liked it, because you can pass with like major revisions, or there's other formats you can not pass at all. But the committee definitely liked it, and I worked really hard on it, and it took 9 years of my life. I would like to talk about it more and share more, because I also interviewed 37 activists, and also people who are less activists but more on the sort of like psychedelic underground side of things, because I was looking at activism not just as like people showing up to protest, but people sort of being the change they want to see in the world, regardless of what the sort of laws say about what they can and can't do. I collected so much knowledge from these incredible people. It's really a treasure trove, and I want to get their quotations and thoughts and experience out, because the reason I did that project as my dissertation project was because we all know that stuff is bad. It's really bad out there. It's shitty and not good, and we have to do something about it, but nobody 100% seems to know exactly what to do, and I am very, very focused on praxis and what can we actually do. We talk a lot about the problems, we talk endlessly about the problems and how shitty everything is, but I'm really interested in like, well, what can we do about it? And that's a difficult thing to even talk about it. People are really afraid to just have conversations about what we might be able to do. And this is kind of what I wanted to talk about today in this little video, is some interactions I had on Bluesky recently, which is much better than Twitter, but still carries with it the baggage of people's internal landscapes that are very reactive and afraid. I found that it's really saddening and frustrating that just trying to have conversations with people about, well, what could work? What might actually work? Like, what can we do? We know that the wolves are at the fucking door. The fascists are running around. Like, everyone's in danger. Some people are much more in danger than others, but we're all in this boat together. What can we do? And a lot of people really seem to almost compulsively just want to shoot things down. They just want to shoot down every idea. They criticize every idea. There's nothing that you can ever propose for what we could do that isn't going to have people being like, well, no, that's not realistic because of this. No, well, that's impractical because of this, or that's not going to work, or like, you could, talking to people, that they're never going to listen or whatever. There's a million different reasons why people just default to just shitting on every possible thing that we might be able to do to fucking survive. And it's concerning, and I'm trying not to let it get to me, but it feels like that impulse in itself is something that I'm struggling to figure out how to help people move beyond. Because sometimes what I'm always trying to do on social media is have conversation. That's what this is for, is we're talking about stuff, we're having conversations about stuff. And there's a lot of people who even like, and I'm talking about leftists here. You have obviously the liberals who are going to be like, that's not practical. Well, it's it's what if we just do a means tested policy where we make a cutoff for your bank account, and if you bought a watch within the last 5 years, you don't get food stamps. And liberals are going to liberal. They're gonna do whatever they're gonna do. I'm not even talking about them. I'm talking about leftists who constantly critique and dump on any possible conversations about what could work. They're really quick to do it, and I've really changed the language that I've started to use when I'm engaging with people, based a lot on nonviolent communication, the book and training by Marshall Rosenberg. If you haven't listened to the nonviolent communication training, it's on Spotify, probably other streaming services. It's probably on like a website somewhere for free if you don't want to use the streaming services for perfectly legitimate moral reasons. But I know that it's free on Spotify, and you can listen to the whole training. It's kind of like listening to an 8-part podcast or something. And it's Marshall Rosenberg, and he's this wonderful old Jewish man with a very reassuring voice, and it's very nice to listen to. And I swear to God, he's secretly an anarchist. It's remarkable. Listen to it and come back in the comments here and tell me what you think, because he's very, very careful to not use any trigger words of politics. So you're not totally sure what his politics are, but I swear to God, he's a hardcore anarchist and just isn't saying it. It's great. Anyways, I have, thanks to that and some other forms of sort of like communication, learning, and training that I've done, which has been remarkably, enormously helpful to my organizing work, but also just to my interpersonal life and relationships. It's great. I have changed the way that I talk to people because I've noticed that a lot of people online really are just gunning for a debate. They just want to argue, and it's hard for me to just tell people when they're telling me I'm wrong or something, whatever. That's what they love to do, even though I'm not. And when I am wrong, when anybody's wrong, the only way that they're gonna listen to you is if you offer the information, the correct information, in a way that respects their humanity and their intelligence and it's like kind and nice and reaching out as a gift instead of like, you're fucking wrong, you whatever. But when people seem really interested in just being like, you're wrong, I'm like, you were looking for a debate, and that's not what I'm looking for. I'm trying to have conversations, and I don't want to engage that way. I don't think it helps anyone or anything, and I don't think that anybody who is engaging in that type of back and forth is actually learning from each other. Because then it becomes about, well, my position's right, and I stake my identity on this position, because we do this whole thing where we're like, if I'm right, I'm good, and if I'm wrong, I'm bad, so I can't be wrong because then I'm bad. And especially, unfortunately, I've this has been an issue for me for a really long time, because I put so much of my self-worth in my intelligence as, an academic and someone who replaced self-worth with A grades after I got my ADHD diagnosis and got properly medicated. That's a whole other story. But I know the feeling of I'm right, and I like, no, I'm just going to argue until I'm going to defend my point, because that's the thing. I get why people do it, but it's super not productive, and it's just not helpful at all, and it doesn't help us understand each other and where we're coming from and come to better understandings of what we might do. Anyways, there's so many things I could talk about. The other thing I wanted to hear was questions from people. I also just want to know how people are doing. So when I am saying these things, because I know as content creators we have to be like, get people to write things in the comments, because that helps with engagement and helps boost your video. The more comments your video has, the more it's going to be seen by people, which is important to me. a little bit financially, but mostly because people not wanting to die in the climate apocalypse thing and wanting people to listen about environmental and decolonial issues. I am aware of that, but genuinely, I only ask for comments on stuff unless it's like a video about certain things that tend to get buried, in which I might ask like, "Oh, what's your favorite album?" or whatever, just to have people talking about stuff in the comments. Whenever I'm asking those kind of questions, I just want to make it clear that I'm actually very curious in the answers. I can't always read and respond to every comment, but I usually read most of them, depending on the place and time. Usually what I do on videos is let, like, if there's like a lot of comments, I'll let them float. I'll let the good ones float to the top through other people like liking them, because then I get to avoid seeing all the threats and insults. But I suspect I won't get much. I often get on YouTube Shorts, for some reason, I always just get horrible comments from people who have no idea who I am and absolutely hate my guts from the 1 minute that they see of me. Because, capitalism and whatnot. But I imagine that the only people commenting in here are going to be people who, are down with this kind of chill videos. When I ask for your feedback and stuff, I'm actually genuinely interested. I want to know. I say, how are you doing? And I actually want to know. I'm curious. Like, how is everybody holding up? What are you up to these days? What's keeping you sane? What is giving you hope? Even simpler than that, like, tell me about a nice tree you saw. I love hearing any kind of stories or anecdotes of just being in nature. Tell me about some bees that you saw. What color were the flowers that you saw on your walk today? How did the breeze smell? How did your body feel? I love that shit, and I think that we should talk more about that kind of stuff in the comments on things, because it would just make the internet a nicer place to be if we did that. Anyways, what the fuck was I talking about? What am I gonna call this video? 29 minutes of me going on tangents and never making a point. Okay, well, I'll at least tell the little story of what happened on Bluesky. In a nutshell, I am shocked at how many people. I'll tell it from the beginning. I posted a thing because Charlie Kirk died this week, and I'm not gonna even get into that. I don't think I wish I could share my thoughts and opinions on this stuff I could just share them and then not read the comments on a video where I'm that explicit and honest, but it's really hard to share the subtlety and complexity of how I feel and what I think about situations like this, because someone's always going to get mad. Unless you toe the party line and say exactly what the average leftist, what the sort of median discourse is, which usually leans towards whatever is the coldest and most callous, then you're going to get yelled at. If you say anything other than fuck that guy, I'm glad he's dead, like no sympathy, I hope it happens again or whatever. To be clear, I'm not saying any of this. I'm saying that if you say that stuff on the left, it seems to be fine. And if you have anything else to say that might offer some complexity or subtlety, people don't respond well to that, and I just don't really care to expose myself to that kind of thing at the moment. Generally speaking, the work that I do has to involve a lot of bravery, because I'm trying to talk about compassion and the fact that dehumanizing our enemies is not actually helpful in getting us to where we want to go. Doesn't God, I'm so close to wading into it. It doesn't mean that you have to like cry when this kind of thing happens, but it does mean that you have to understand that all of these fucking assholes are victims of the spiritual and social disease that we are all victims of to some extent. Some people are victimized significantly more and some less, but this is not an individual problem that can be solved by individual people going away. It is a collective problem, and there's gonna be 10 more Charlie Kirks lining up to do the same shit, because this isn't about individuals, it's about the structures. Anyways, God, I shouldn't have even given a hint at what my true thoughts are on this, because I just, oh man, people are so reactive. I don't know if I have fucking time for it. So much of my emotional energy goes into calming down my children when they're having a fucking meltdown because their granola bar broke. I can't parent every person who is unable to emotionally regulate and see clearly through these situations. Anyways, I there has been discourse about the person who did it, and saying that he's like a groiper and whatever, is terminally online brain poisoning. Which, listen, there but for the grace of whatever Marxist floated into our lives, or whatever punk anarchist mutual aid doer we happened to meet at a rave or a show one time, or a teacher that we had that instilled compassion in us, or nice parents that brought you into nature. There but for the grace of all of those things that led us, you and I, to be making and watching this video right now, go we. Like those millions of people who have more severe and more aggressively conservative brain poisoning than we do, they're the same as us, but they are not worse than us. We are not better than them. They have been propagandized to and did not have the luxury and the privilege that we had of being exposed to people who inoculated us against those internet rabbit holes that they are going down. That should be spoken of more often and should be super clear. But anyways, the person who did the thing is clearly, yeah, internet brain poisoning. And I posted something on Bluesky about how our survival as a species and the necessity of of our survival as a species depends on us reconnecting with nature. Everything depends on it. This is my stance, my educated and informed stance as somebody who studies this stuff for a living and thinks about it constantly all day long and talks to people and listens to people and reads obsessively. Our disconnection from nature, essentially, it turns out indigenous people are right. They're always fucking right. Not that a single indigenous person is always right about everything, but as a collective, when they have wisdom that they have been telling us over and over and over for centuries, they're fucking right. They're correct about it. And that's just the end of the story. I would love, please, somebody ask me to talk more about why this is the case. I would love to do that. But it's just how it is. And the thing that they have been telling us is that under capitalism and colonialism, specifically settler colonialism, but through the entire system, like it is at its core separation from land that is the problem. Because when we see ourselves as separate from the land, separate from nature, we, under the settler colonial and capitalist worldviews, we see ourselves as above nature, as outside of it, and therefore nature is something to dominate, to commodify, to control, to use, to dominate and control and use as we see fit. And that is the core of the problem. When we see ourselves as outside of those things, then we are just using up the world's, the natural resources. And most indigenous groups had for hundreds of thousands of years. We're talking 200,000 plus years of human history. This is another frustrating thing I get as an anthropologist online. People's memory, their conception of human history is so fucking short. Even 10,000 years, they think that that's the extent of human history. Human history is more than 200,000 years of anatomically modern Homo sapiens. This is like even the most, if I recall correctly, if you're a biological anthropologist, correct me in the comments, because I really drifted into the political and cultural and social anthropology from my early biological anthropology days. But I think even the most conservative sort of suggestions of when anatomically modern humans became us, like that we have no difference between us and them. I think that the most conservative estimates are about 40,000 years ago. Even if you want to say 40,000 years, that's so much longer than capitalism has been around. Capitalism has been around for maybe 400 to 600 years. Not four, but yeah, like 500 years or so. Colonialism has been around for, well, that kind of depends on how you define it, but at least 800 to 1,000. There was certainly imperialism before that. But certainly, even if you're going to go wide with it and be like modern, or not modern, but like any hierarchical type of society that involved subjugation and domination at scale, maybe 10,000 years. We're talking the vast majority of human history. We were connected with nature in a way that was sustainable. It didn't have human caused climate change 40,000 years ago because and it's not because they were all too stupid to like invent a car or whatever. It's because they were very aware that we are dependent, as indigenous people, modern indigenous people today still are, and they're constantly telling us we are dependent on our environment for survival. This is actually a fucking crazy thing that I even have to remind people of this. It shouldn't be crazy, because if we didn't need to remind people of this, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in. But the fact that I have to remind people that we can't, like, food has to come from somewhere. We need to connect with nature because we need to have an understanding of ecosystems in order to eat food. We think food comes from the box that we get our Uber Eats in. No, it grows in the ground, and the ground is drying up and becoming non-arable at a rapid rate because we're fucking addicted to fast fashion and computer chips and racism. Reconnecting with nature, seeing our place in nature, seeing ourselves as primates, like we are apes. We need food, we need water, we need sunshine, we need air. When people are so disconnected from those things because they live in, and again, this is what happened on Bluesky. A bunch of people yelled return at me and said that it was fascism to say that reconnection with nature is important to our survival. I'm not saying that like we all need to go back. You can't go back. We're only going forward. And I'm not saying that we need to completely dismantle society and reinstate whatever we think that we used to be or whatever. Like no one's, I don't know. Maybe some people are saying that, but like I like having vaccines and stuff. I don't like that even when you think about most of our modern technology is not necessary and totally useless in terms of like actual human flourishing. But the few parts of modern technology that we have that is useful for human flourishing, such as vaccines and refrigerators, if we're real, all of that stuff was built on exploitation too. There's like the scientific racism that is and exploitation that is behind most of our modern medical advancements. There's the exploitation of land and resources and of labor that goes into most of our modern devices and gadgets, and the development of those things. Even the Industrial Revolution was just indentured servitude and child laborers. Yeah, there's a lot of our technology that we could do without, and I think that we actually do need to reckon with the fact that we have all of this now because of exploitation, and it's unsustainable exploitation. But that said, I'm not saying that if I'm real, I'm not saying we all need to get rid of air conditioning. I am saying you're probably gonna need to learn to live without squishmallows. I'm sorry, I have good friends of mine who would like be mad at me for saying this, but like, just buying a t-shirt online just because it has a phrase from a show that you like, that you think is funny, and you already own 50 t-shirts, we're gonna have to have some conversations about what we actually need and do we need this stuff so badly? Do we need this little gadget, this little fidget toy, whatever? I know I'm gonna alienate my entire fucking audience by coming after fidget toys, but is that stuff worth the destruction of the Amazon rainforest? I mean, fidget toys specifically, I can offer that they are just there to replace our very natural human instinct to do stuff with our hands. I saw somebody the other day even say, like, you don't want to scroll on your phone, you just want something to do with your hands. And I was like, oh. But yeah, traditionally, we spent a lot of our time just doing little fiddly things with our hands that were really useful. We were like knitting, we were sewing, we were, brushing skins, we were picking seeds and out of food, we were harvesting, we were brushing our children's hair. Humans are used to doing things with our hands all the time, and I don't keep your fidget toy. I'm not coming after your fidget toy. Use it, enjoy it, whatever you need for your anxiety. Please don't say that when I'm talking about this stuff, I am never saying you personally need to throw out all your shit. Anything that makes you happy, get rid of it. But we need to talk about, I have fidget toys, literally. I have a little one that I use on my finger and everything. But having conversations, again, about why we need that shit instead of doing stuff with our hands that would be more helpful to us and to our communities and that would be valued. Those are important conversations to have. Why did you have to fucking sit still in a classroom and you have to use a fidget toy to be able to sit still? Because classrooms are unnatural abominations preparing the working class for a lifetime of servitude and authoritarian control. I said it. Again, if anyone wants me to make a video about that, I'm always happy to explain some of the non sequiturs that I throw out here. But yeah, it's important conversations to have. Anyways, because we need food and because such an enormously important part of the colonial project was disconnecting people from nature, which was why such a huge part of the colonial project was disconnecting Indigenous children from their parents. This happened in a lot of different places. It happened in Canada. It happened in Ireland with the schooling and disconnecting children from their own language, because language is related to place and to community and to history. And so they needed to get rid of all of that. And disrupting cultural traditions that let people stay in contact with nature and their place in nature and their traditions and their songs and stories and rituals. All of that stuff was very, very intentionally, not entirely wiped out, because you can't, it's pretty difficult to kill culture. But a lot of it was really intentionally wiped out because it was so important to get people to disconnect from land in order to have people justify and go along with the exploitation of the land. If you don't see trees as people, then it's not a big deal if we chop them all down. It's the depersonification of nature. That's a higher level thing that we'll get into whenever people are ready for it. We can go deeper into the depersonification of nature and how that relates to colonialism. But they had to get rid of our protectiveness over nature. And now if you live in a city, I live in Toronto. High Park is a beautiful, beautiful little forested park. The water there is fucking disgusting. It's polluted. It's so polluted from just the runoff from the city. I have seen ducks in that park drinking, like looking for food in what essentially looks like an oil slick. And I'm like, should I call 911? Why are we okay with this? There's no collective outrage at how polluted the water is here, because we don't use that water in High Park, but that to drink. But it goes directly into the lake that we do drink from, and we do have water treatment plants and stuff like that. But there are always new problems being created by this disconnection from land that are harming us, such as microplastics. Our water treatment plants aren't getting rid of those. And, what if our water treatment plants are defunded by the next conservative psychos who get into power? And we've already seen where that happens in the US, where people don't have clean drinking water because capitalists and colonizers have so thoroughly privatized and gotten control over those utilities that people are getting sick because of the water. There's actually an anthropologist, God, I can't remember what his name is. Anyways, he does incredible work on this exact topic in New York State. But I cite him a lot in my dissertation, why I really blocked everything out. Oh, fuck. I'll try to remember and put it in the diddly-do. But the fact that, people, just stuff happens to nature, stuff gets cut down, stuff gets destroyed, it gets polluted. The fact that people aren't deeply upset about this, I mean, a lot of people are. I am, but you might be. But like collectively, we're not upset enough for this exact same reasons that we are collectively not upset enough about violence against Black people in the States and, Indigenous people here in Canada and, whatever your marginalized group is that you want to pick. We are collectively not upset about the violence against those marginalized people enough, because they have been systematically dehumanized by our society. We see them as less than, not deserving. Well, it's just normal. Black men just go to prison. That's what they do. And people aren't outraged and saying that that's insane that we put them in cages. That's absolutely just unconscionable. It's that same process that has caused us to treat nature as disposable and not important. And it's that same thing that Indigenous peoples are trying to get us to wake up to before, and have been doing so since the advent of settler colonialism. But apparently that makes me a fascist, because it's fascist to think that people should spend more time in nature and care more about nature. I mean, I should, steel man these people's arguments or whatever. Yeah, essentially somebody quote tweeted me saying that it was fascism to say that we should reconnect with nature and that it's really important. And to you that might seem crazy, but there were a couple people who were like really pretty, like a few people who were pretty certain that because some fascists have been doing a thing where they always have, they take a natural human instinct or inclination or interest, such as interest in in nature, or in safety or anything like that, and they warp it to suit their ends. Or in spirituality is a big one. They say, yeah, we should get back to nature. You're right. Nature is important, but the whole point of it is that we need to do it because it's like old school manly, where we used to chop down trees with our bare hands and then go and sell the wood or whatever the fuck. I don't know what they're really saying, but yeah, this return shit about like small scale homesteading and all that kind of thing. It's all warped and wrong because they're coming at it from a fundamentally individualist perspective, where they're like, what you need is like a housewife to, and like a little farm where it's just the two of you and your 9 kids, and the wife just does whatever you say and you can breathe the fresh mountain air. That's not actually returning to nature, because it still represents a worldview that is predicated on the ownership of nature and of other of women and children. But their whole thing isn't, no, we need to return to nature in order to understand our role within nature, which is not to dominate and own it, but to live in harmony with it and with our fellow beings in order that we all thrive, because all of our thriving depends on each other. No, the fascists are doing a cosplay fucked up, I want to say childish, but it's not even childish, like a really warped version of this, and they are not connecting with nature. They are instrumentalizing nature for their own ends. But they're doing so because humans do have a natural inclination towards wanting to be in nature, because it's where we feel good. Because when you're near a large body of water, it represents to your bones and your DNA and your ancestors and every part of your being near a large body of clean water represents life. Being near trees, being near lush forests, being near rivers, being near a well-tended campfire, being near children. All of these things represent life because they are life. And everybody has that within them. Humans don't have as many natural instincts as other animals do, but that is one of them, or that's a few of them, is to associate things like water, fresh air, good soil with safety. And so when we smell the smell of rain on dry soil, that it's a deep existential pleasure. And the right knows some of this, because they are still humans despite how much they attempt to dehumanize themselves, and they can see it in other people. And so they take advantage of that, and they warp it to their own ends, the same way that they warp our natural inclination towards spirituality, which is tied into that, towards patriarchal monotheistic religions. Again, a story for another day. I'm running out of space on my phone. I'm gonna wrap this up, but it was a pretty wild little interaction, but it just made me think about how badly we need to find ways to have more of these conversations, and that's what I'm doing. I'm making a 47-minute video about this brief Bluesky interaction, but it's just to get me back in the saddle. I wanted to just make videos, and this is how I'm going to start doing it. For the 3 people who made it to the end, congratulations. I should have had some sort of prize ready for you, but I don't know. The prize is the fact that you have this level of desire to connect and understand. This sounds really weird, but the people who follow me and like my work, I just have a lot of respect for because it means that we're just interested in the same things, and I think that that's neat. Yeah. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe. Actually, the most helpful thing you can do is go and like and comment on my short form videos also, and comment on this one. And share it if you think anybody else wants to. I would assume that this would be a good video to just listen to, but which is why I'm going to start the podcast back up also. But yeah, signing up for the Patreon is the most helpful possible thing, but if you can't do that, comment and like and subscribe and share and all the stuff. You know how social media works, exactly what you can do to help me out, and I really appreciate it. I hope that you're well. I hope that you're getting paid what you deserve, but I know you're not. May all your enemies stub their toes tomorrow, and may your least favorite coworker call in sick. I love you. Bye for now.